but we need to motivate them. We need to maybe put our hands around them, our arm around them, and say, hey, we got this. We're going to help you. And you as a leader needs to be in the trenches with them. So when things go bad, it's not on them, it's on us, right? So it's part of your culture. Are you building that culture of inclusivity, but also partnership? So getting on the same side as them to try to overcome whatever barriers that we're overcoming to ultimately get to goal. But if we're setting the bar high, the expectations are there. Everyone knows what that means in terms of your objectives. So this is where the bar is. We need to go after it, and we need to accomplish everything that is underneath this, set the bar high.
Where was that pivotal point where you transformed into being a leading sales professional into a sales leader? Because it's a huge difference. And we've seen this. And before you answer that, I want to touch on this. We've seen it. Companies will take great sales leaders, people are leading the charge, throw them into a leadership position, and they fall flat on their face. So it's a big difference between being a great sales professional and a great sales leader.
Unfinished Business Podcast Show with your host, David Sliman.
Welcome back to Unfinished Business, everybody. And today is one of those shows that I just love to really discuss and dive into. And it's sales leadership. Now, when you're talking sales leadership, listen, there's a lot of great sales professionals out there, but it sure is one thing to not only just be a great sales professional, but actually transform into a sales leader. And our guest today has a super strong track record in growth, inspiring high performance teams, organizations, revenue, and with deep experience across the healthcare industry, and also consistently showing aligned vision, processes, delivery. And listen to this, 13-time award winner in his space and his organization. Now, this is like winning the Super Bowl 13 times. Him and his teams have elevated not only their results, but ultimately have led the way in culture and growing teams. So without further ado, I want to introduce Nick Rella. Nick, welcome to the show. And we're going to talk everything about sales leadership and all the things that it takes to really elevate a sales organization and a sales team. So Nick, thanks for being here today.
David, it's my great pleasure. I'm a huge fan of your show. I kind of feel every time I listen to your show and the super guests that you have, I always walk away with something amazing a pearl that I could actually use myself. And just being part of this show and being able to contribute and give back to your audience, and maybe they'll pick up a pearl too for me, is a pleasure. So thank you for having me on.
Listen, man, it's one of those things where when I connect with people and I talk with them about being on the show, I can tell right away if there's going to be synergy, and we're going to have that today. So everybody buckle up. If you want to talk about or listen to a show that's geared around sales, performance, sales, leadership, execution, building winning teams, leadership perspectives, this is a show. So sit back, Nick, we're going to jump right in. All right. So this is my question to you. The first one. There's always sometimes there's pivotal moments, other times it's gradual. But for you, was there a time where you realized that you were transforming? Usually sales leaders have been great sales professionals at one point. Where was that pivotal point where you transformed into being a leading sales professional into a sales leader? Because it's a huge difference. And we've seen this. And before you answer that, I want to touch on this. We've seen it. Companies will take great sales leaders, people are leading the charge, throw them into a leadership position, and they fall flat on their face. So it's a big difference between being a great sales professional and a great sales leader. But what was that pivotal point for you when you knew you wanted to do this?
Yeah, it's a great question, David. And you're so right. Just because you're good at the actual role doesn't mean you could lead people in that role. Some people, it's an innate skill and they're able to make that delineation and that transition, right? But for me, It's a great question because when I think back, I think about the mentors that I had early on in my career, and in a sales capacity, I felt like I was a good sales professional, but I enjoyed the coaching aspect of the role. So people saw in me early on, maybe this person can potentially be a sales leader for us in the future if we apply the right resources, the right coaching, the right key learnings, potentially that could it happen. So when I think back in my career, that's exactly what happened to me. And when I think about organizations today, there's do you have a bench, right? I think about, do you have a bench of sales professionals that can be those leaders for you in the future? So I'm thankful for those mentors that saw that in me, and I was able to apply some of those key learnings. And then given the opportunity, right? I didn't know if I was going to be good at it or not, but I was given the opportunity. Someone took a chance on me and bet on me to be able to be in that role and be successful at it. And when I look back, that was a key pivotal moment for me.
Yeah. What do you think one of the biggest things you have to have as an acumen to be a great, and I know there's a few, okay, but if you could actually, let's narrow this down. If you could name the top two traits that great sales leaders have, what would those be?
I personally think number one, they have to have impeccable listening skills, like being able
Okay.
to understand the whole dynamic of what the people that report into you, what they want, what they aspire to achieve, what their heartaches are, what their issues are, what their goals are, and be able to really listen, right? So that's
Okay.
a really important skill, because as leaders, sometimes we have an agenda, right? It's our agenda. We set up all
Yeah.
these meetings and we want to listen. It's our agenda, is it, we need to switch that around. Is it our people? So listening skills for sure is kind of at the top. And you're right, there's so many,
Okay.
right? For
Listen.
me, listening skills
Yes.
is number one. Number
Yeah.
two is being able to meet people where they are in their coaching skills. For example,
Okay.
where are they in their overall capabilities, right? What are they good at? What are they weak at? And then your ability to define them and really diagnose where you want to lean in on, right? Because you're not going to be able to work on everything. But if you could find these one or two things that could shape and make a difference in that person's trajectory towards learning and improving, those are critical skills right there, right? So those two things
Yeah.
kind of are top of mind for me.
That's great. That's great. And listen, like you, actually, what's so funny is you have 25 plus years in successful sales leadership and performance. And there's something to be said about that. And that's about the same that much time I have in this as well. So when it comes to the balance. All right, I want to talk about sales strategy and execution, right? When it comes to the balance, because you have to be, when you're a sales leader, you have to really be balanced in process and creativity. How do you really, I guess, let me ask this question a little bit better. How do you balance process and creativity when it comes to sales execution? Because sales professionals sometimes will have these great ideas, right, and they just get off the rails. But you don't want to limit that. You want to make sure that you spark that in as a leader. But how do you balance that process and creativity so that there's still that execution?
And it's a great question. You think about it, marketing teams
Yeah,
come up with, we think this is what you should be doing, right?
yeah, yeah,
And listen, they get it right a lot of the times, but it's not if you stifle the creativity that you bring up, David, I think we're not tapping into the strengths of some of the people in our team. So you almost have to go at it with a clean slate, like a blank slate. Hey, here's what marketing strategy wants us to execute on. But what do you think? What else can we do to exemplify what marketing wants us to do, but then add our own flavor to it, if you will, our own touch to it?
yeah,
Because who knows the customers better than the people that are customer facing, right? They know the customers, they
yeah,
know their needs,
yeah,
they know their wants, they know those hot buttons, right? So I think you have to balance it for sure, but keep in mind that creativity is alive and well in everyone's brain. But if you just stifle them by just telling them this is the only way to do it, that is a sure bet that you're going to set them potentially on doing something that potentially they're not good at or they don't have strengths
yeah,
around, right? So now we're teaching new skills, and which is fine. But I think you have to balance both. But the creativity that everyone has that's something we have to tap into every day.
Yeah. Yeah. It's important because there are some things that work and there's some things that don't. But, on the flip side of this, I want to ask you a question. What do you believe is the most important fundamental of sales success and sales strategy in today's world? Okay. It's evolved. I shouldn't say it. There's some fundamentals though that just have to be there. What's one of the most important?
Well, listen, today, if you think about it, we have an amazing technology.
Yeah.
Are we tapping into technology to deliver our products and our services? And if we're not tapping into that, I think that's a huge miss. And every organization obviously is investing hugely in this, in whatever that technology might be for your organization. But tapping into it is critically important. And then understanding how that technology might fit in for the customer, right? And explaining it because it might be new to that customer. And we need to take that information and make it come alive in the customer's mind. So potentially we could use that resource to bring increased revenue and increased production for the customer. So that is an important transition. And today's day, we need to be tapping into that, more so than ever.
Yeah, and I think the technology, and I want to bring this up, okay, because I've had more conversations around this lately with technology. But do you think sometimes technology distracts professionals from the fundamentals, or maybe has them overlook some of the fundamentals because they're looking for? And I'm not saying they're looking for, but listen, I'm absolutely a person to say, hey, work smarter, not harder. But I always say you have to earn the right to work smarter and not harder by doing the fundamentals. But I want to bring this up because it's a conversation I've had more recently. But do you think sales professionals are getting away from the fundamentals and trying to lean on technology too much? Or do you see a good balance of that right now?
I think it's adapting, right? Because
Okay.
fundamentals are always needed, right? You're always going to be in front of a human person to develop your business, right? To make a sale, if you will. So it's adapting. It's adapting to what the customer's needs are, but sticking to the fundamentals as they are. Remember, we're dealing with humans, right? And that we can
Yeah.
never forget. And that's an important element. Now, bringing technology, I think, just makes this work more efficient, smarter. It brings information
Agreed.
that potentially we don't have or didn't have at our disposal. So being open minded, I think, is the key, right? Fundamentals are always
Yeah.
going to be there, always going to be important, but bringing technology into the loop of the value that you bring to your customers is an important element. So again, it's adapting. It's adapting to that shift. We should never say, I don't want to use the new technology because I think that'll set you back as well. But
Yeah.
being open minded, being a little bit more agile to that technology, and then understanding how do we implement that into the fundamentals of sales, if you will, right? Closing, understanding gaps, asking the right questions. How do we use that how do we bring that technology to life within those fundamentals?
Which those are the fundamentals you're talking about, right? I mean, that's just it. Like, oh, you can't. I can't tell you how many times that people get so they're all excited to have an appointment, and all of a sudden, like, they're not asking the right questions. That's why I loved, and that's why I love this show so much, right? And why I really enjoyed sales from the first 25 years when I first started. I was always curious, man, and I always wanted to ask questions. And I think sales professionals sometimes they get so wrapped up in the fact that they got to make the sale or what's going on, but you got to ask the right questions. And that's a big fundamental that I want to touch on and really make a point. So great answer on that.
And just to add to
Okay.
that,
Yeah,
asking the right
please.
questions. I mean, sometimes, we want to teach our people to use our resources. We want to teach them to have a message, make sure that we're aligned there. But if you don't really dig deep and understand the customer, that's a missing
Yeah.
piece of the equation, an important missing piece, because it's
Yeah.
your agenda versus the customers. And how do we
Yeah.
blend those two together? And that comes basically from that fundamental of asking the right questions and spending a lot of time in that area.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. Huge point. Play that back, listen to it again. If you're leading teams, that's something you want to really put some pressure on. All right, what are some of the most common mistakes you see sales teams make, and how do you correct them? Let me know because we're talking about the things that you should be doing. And now I want to flip this and go to the things that you see as a sales leader that are commonly a misstep, and how do you correct those?
Yeah. So the biggest thing I see in being in the role for the number of years that I've been is not taking the person that's reporting into you in everything that they do into the conversation. And what I mean by that is, are we spending time? Are we spending time understanding what their long-term goals are? People that report into you.
Okay.
And I see us as leaders sometimes, I've seen this where we spend so much time on their current skills that they need to do the job today,
Okay.
and not enough time in the skills that they're going to need to do the job tomorrow. So
Great.
that's an important element, because some people could see themselves in their current role in a year, 2 years, but potentially they may have aspirations to do other things, be in other functions within the organization. Are we preparing them? Are we having the conversations with them so they are prepared when those roles surface? So it's almost like building the bench for other functions of the organization. But if we're not having those conversations, David, I think what we're really saying to our team is, or of the team members, is we need you for this role. We don't see you in a future role. And guess what could happen? You may lose quality talent.
Yeah.
So what can we do to retain that talent is change the conversations that sales leaders are having with their people. So they're not only looking about the skills that they need to learn today, but also how do we develop them for tomorrow and future roles?
It's such a great perspective, developing them for future roles of tomorrow. You want to talk about continuity and a buy-in that you get from your team members when they see that you're investing in them. And not only just for the minute, but for the future. It really does. It's such a great point, Nick. And again, that's why one of the reasons I had you on the show is your perspective on this and building teams. It goes deeper than just a sales quota. And what you're talking about here is building a real culture and building a winning team. And I want to pivot to this now. I want to kind of focus on your strategies since we started talking about it, about building a winning team. And, I see organizations that will hire. They're always looking for new hire. Every organization that I've done consulting work and continue to do consulting work have been, obviously looking for new hires and prioritizing that. But when building a sales team, Nick, what qualities do you make as a priority with new hires? I mean, can you share that for some of the listeners out there who may be looking to build some stronger teams?
Yeah, it's such a great question. So one of the things I love to do is you have to have a really good pulse on the strengths of your current team. Just really understand, like, what are they really good at, right? And then when you need to bring someone else onto that team, how can I improve the current team by bringing someone in that has a very diverse background?
Okay.
And for a lot of leaders, David, it's a risk. Sometimes they look at that as a risk, meaning, do I want to bring someone who really has not done this role before? Maybe has done other roles that are very somewhat the same, but not really the same. So it's almost betting, as a leader, you have to bet on yourself that you could bring that diverse person into the mix. You could teach them what they need to know and skills they need to know, but the value that they bring from that diverse look is what's going to build your team to be even stronger. So it's almost like you need to have the pulse on what you have, look at what don't you have, and seek that out, and that bring that to your team. And now what you have is you've complemented that team amazingly, and you're giving that person with a diverse background an opportunity to prove themselves. But you as a leader needs to bet on you. You need to say, this is on me. I need to coach. I need to spend time. I need to develop that person because they're not the most ideal person for the role. Most leaders are a little bit averse to that, but I've done it throughout my career,
Yeah.
and I've had a lot of great success.
Yeah, I've got a story in particular where there was a guy was building a company back probably in the mid 2000s, or it was 2015 or whatever. But we had a telemarketing department, and this guy, he didn't have a lot of opportunity, and I mean, he was taking a skateboard to work, man. It was crazy, but he was a really good appointment setter for our team, and we identified that he could really move into a sales position. So the manager and I took him out one day. We bought him a bunch of clothes. We spent clothes, bought him shoes, clothes, everything, and he turned out to be a fantastic sales professional. But we saw the things he was doing day in and day out, his attitude, the way he approached things, and we saw something in him. And sometimes you got to take those chances. And you want to talk about diverse background. I mean, that's one of those things. And he was he really stayed on well and did a great job through the years. And that's one of those things. So it's good stuff, man. It's a great perspective.
And the way you find those candidates, you're like, well, how do you find them, right? Like, how do you know? It's in the interview. Like, you have to spend time interviewing them, understanding how they think, how those skills might be transferable to what they, what they're doing now to what they would be doing, and really dig deep in that interview process to understand. But there's a lot of people that have those diverse backgrounds that could certainly bring a ton of value. Obviously, your example is one of them, but there's so many examples like that. So that's one thing that
so many.
I'm a big believer in, and certainly would advocate for that.
Yeah, it really is important. One of the things I always say is it's great when things are going great. Sales are coming in. Everybody's, things are firing on all cylinders. That's fantastic. And you got to work to get to that point. But how do you keep teams motivated through challenging times or slower cycles? What's your perspective on that? And what's your approach to really keep things going when there might not be going as well?
Yeah. So it's obviously another great question there, David. So I'm a big believer of setting the bar, right? Mm-hmm. And if you set the bar high enough early in the year, if you will, and say, here's our expectations, here's what we need to get to, and set the bar high enough for them so they understand what the end goal is. But as a leader, as the year progresses, you may not be even close to that high expectation of execution. Mm-hmm. So what do? Obviously, you need to be real, and you need to be transparent, and you need to tell everybody kind of where they're at and where we're at as an organization. But do you double down and continue to tell them that we need to do better, right? And yeah, you need to motivate them, but they already know. They see it in the numbers, right? They see where they're at.
They know. Yeah.
So it's the constant motivation and believing in them, right? It's almost like this mental, it's a mental thing, right? It's a mindset that even though your team may not be doing well, or they're not doing well for whatever the reason, yes, we need to dig deep and find out why, but we need to motivate them. We need to maybe put our hands around them, our arm around them, and say, hey, we got this. We're going to help you. And you as a leader needs to be in the trenches with them. So when things go bad, it's not on them, it's on us, right? So it's part of your culture. Are you building that culture of inclusivity, but also partnership? So getting on the same side as them to try to overcome whatever barriers that we're overcoming to ultimately get to goal. But if we're setting the bar high, the expectations are there. Everyone knows what that means in terms of your objectives. So this is where the bar is. We need to go after it, and we need to accomplish everything that is underneath this, set the bar high. And then if we could execute, then and make them feel like they're little things that they do that are well, like recognize them for that. And then ultimately you'll see the confidence is there, and sales could progress in that regard.
Yeah, you got to get wins. I don't care how small or big they are. When times are tough, you got to go out and get a win. That's
That's
how I
right.
even end the show. You
That's
have
right.
an example. Listen, I'm going to put you on the spot, but you have an example of when you've turned around an underperforming team, or even an individual for that matter, where it sticks in your mind that you've made an
Yeah.
impact and you've applied those things that you just talked about.
Yeah, a couple of years back, I was with an organization that had a team that unfortunately it was a culture dynamic basically where it was just dysfunctional. Leader was not engaging, at the level that they should. People didn't feel like they were cared about, and we're in a sales leadership. It's a people first job, right? I'm a
Yeah.
believer in that. People come first.
Yes.
So, and it goes back to what I initially said before about understanding your people, understanding what their issues are, understanding about their families and what, their career aspirations, really doing that, over a coffee table discussion and spending a lot of time seeking to understand who they are. So I was basically, tapped on the shoulder to do and go in there and try to change the dynamics of that team. And let me tell you, it wasn't easy, right? Because trust wasn't there. You're a leader. You just come here to micromanage me and maybe micromanage me out, right? So you're going into a situation where it might be a little hostile. But
Yeah.
if they see and really understand that you're there to help them, you're there to understand their frustrations, and we're there to partner together to turn things around. That's really where and then you have to prove it, right? Because those are only words initially. So proving
Yeah.
it as time goes on, and then that trust and that bond begins to really take shape, and then your culture also changes from that dynamic as well. Word gets around, people talk to each other, and once they feel that you're a genuine leader, very transparent, you're really there for the
Yeah.
right reasons to help them, things will start to take a turn, but it does take time, and you have to be willing to invest that time.
Yeah, you got to put that time in to get their buy-in. And you use a big word, culture, right? I mean, we know culture plays a huge part of success in sales team development. How do you build that intentionally and not artificially? Like, are there some keys that you would recommend if I'm listening to this show and I've got a culture right now? Listen, no culture is perfect. Well, maybe there is. I haven't seen the perfect culture. There's always things you can be improving on. But what are some of the things that you can do to build it intentionally versus artificially?
Yeah. First thing, in culture, people say, well, culture is built from the top down. Is it built from, where is it built? Right. Obviously it's a combination of everything. Right. So you could set the vision as a CEO of an organization, but if that vision is not bought in from, your customer facing people or your mid-level leaders,
Yeah.
it could be a moot point. I mean, it's a great vision,
Hmm.
but then is there buy-in?
Yes.
Is there buy-in? So how do you get the buy-in? In my opinion, how you get the buy-in, and I've done this throughout my career, is to you listen to people. You create opportunities. You create venues. There's one thing I brought up, and I brought to surface is what I call coffee connections, where you have the CEO of an organization or senior level management person, talking to the person who's customer facing in a coffee setting. Tell me about your job. Tell me about what you like. Tell me what you think about our culture. Making everyone within the organization feel like they have skin in the game when it comes to building the culture that the organization ultimately wants to get to. So involving them, David, is a big part of it. And if you're involving more people in building that culture, you'll be surprised. Again, it'll still take time, but you'll be surprised to what you get to.
Yeah, it's a fundamental thing that we do at sales performance, and it's called for us. It's called organizational alignment. It doesn't have anything to do with sales. It has to do with operations. It has to do with the organizational alignment, and is everybody on the same page with what the company does, why they're different, and what kind of impact they make. And if everybody can really align with that, from marketing to operations to sales, like, you're on the right path. But if you don't have an understanding of that, it's really tough to build the foundation. I mean, you can, but you'll find some cracks and some holes. But it's one of the things that I love doing with organizations, and
Yeah,
you just spoke to that.
I love the way you captured that, David. It's organizational alignment. It really is, and
Yeah,
culture is a big part of that. But
yeah,
involving everyone within the organization and to see if there's alignment. I'll give you another example on that.
yeah,
Organizations do a lot of surveys, right? So they'll do a survey. They'll have a whole bunch of questions,
yeah.
and from that survey, listen, they get a lot of great insights. I mean, people will comment
Uh-huh.
on things that they feel are well established, they're doing well. And they'll also comment on things that they'd like to see improved. So, as an organizational leader, what are you doing with that information? It's great
Yeah,
information. I think you should be transparent, share it back, and say, "Hey, this is where we're at. This is our report card." And then, are you setting things in place to not only continue to invest money into things that are working well, but are you spending dedicated time towards the things that people say we need to fix these things, right? And not you're not
yes,
sweeping them under the rug. So being transparent, being open, and that also builds trust within the organization as well, a culture of trust, because we just took a survey. Here's our report card. Here's what we're doing great. Here's what we need to work on. And everybody knows about it. So now are we formulating plans to get that area that we need to work on where it should be? And
yeah.
that's a big part of that, building that trustworthy culture.
It sure is. All right, this has been, listen, Ned, it's been a great interview. We're going to keep going here. I want to flip gears a little bit on your perspective with leadership. Okay. We started a little bit into it about really your idea of, that pivotal moment for you, or the timing that it transitioned and having great mentors. But how do you define leadership in sales? And how do I want to ask this question? Has it evolved? I mean, from 10 years ago, 5 years ago, 1 year ago, 2 months ago. How do you define leadership in sales?
Yeah, it's another great question, David. Listen,
Yeah.
has it evolved? Yes, I totally will say 100% over the years it has. Some of the fundamentals still obviously the same, but has it evolved? Absolutely. Here's why: generations of people, right?
Mm-hmm.
You have Gen Zs, you have millennials, and think about the different dynamics of people
Yes.
within your organization. And if you think about that alone, that gets your head spinning a little bit, right? Because how you deal with a Gen Zer is way, way different than you deal with someone who's in their 50s, right? They just see the world differently. And as a leader, if you have to study and really understand the dynamics of how these different generations think, do their job, appreciate your coaching, appreciate your leadership, and as a leader, you need to invest time and energy into understanding that dynamic, because that will adapt your coaching and leadership style. So, yes, to answer your question, it has evolved and very different
Yeah.
depending on who you're speaking to.
Great, man. Great. I think it's a great answer. And listen back to that. I think it's so true. Um, you talked about some mentors, and is there one in specific that kind of sticks out in your mind as leadership? Because I believe to be a leader, one, you have to be a good student. That's how you eventually become a great leader. To follow is eventually how you learn to lead. But is there a mentor that sticks out in your mind that helped you out?
Yeah, and one vividly that sticks out, David, and early on in my career, and I would
Yeah.
say the first 5 to 10 years of my career, we had a leader that really believed in investing in
Okay.
leadership development,
Okay.
really
Talk to me.
believed
Yes.
in leadership development. And we, I think in that span of, let's say, the 10, 12 years of my career, I must have attended probably about 15 various leadership training courses and programs
Okay.
outside of the organization, right? So that
Yes.
investment really molded my beliefs, my capabilities, my strategies, what I do today. And if it wasn't for the philosophy of that mentor, and it wasn't only me, it was a whole group of us. And I think back at that entire group, and we are so different, but we're in so many different organizations, leading organizations today. And when I think about all the training and development that person was willing to invest of resources, funds from the organization, because he believed that if he could invest money to keep that talent within the organization, that would bode well, and it did. And that's a story that I always tell. And if you're not getting that from the organization that you're working with right now, I would also suggest get yourself a coach. Every
Yeah.
executive, we talk to executives, I'm sure you do, David, and you probably agree with this. Have a coach. We need a coach. We need someone, and it doesn't have to be someone within the organization. It could be from someone from outside the organization, and maybe it should be someone from outside that
It
you
should
invest
be.
in yourself financially for that type of level of knowledge. And so if you're not getting that, seek it. I think it's incredibly important. I was fortunate enough early in my career to get it, and it really helped in a big way.
I think so too. And I'll tell you, I look back at one of the organizations that I've built and started up, the times that and that's why I love doing consulting work so much. The times that I grew the most as an organization is when I brought somebody from the outside in to help me with something. And the biggest thing when I talk to organizations and they bring leaders, or they have leaders within the organizations and they bring an outside leader in, understand they're not here to take their job. What they're here to do is help elevate their performance. And I always loved and have always been involved in sports and love leading that. And one of the things, if you can bring in an outside in perspective, it's amazing how quickly they'll identify things, because when you're in the weeds every day, it makes it really tough to pick things out. And when you bring somebody from the outside in, sometimes it's right under your nose and you don't even see it.
Right.
So I think it's really important to do that.
Dave,
Yeah,
it's that outside perspective. I totally agree with
yeah,
you, and
yeah,
certainly
it's
worth the
important.
investment. And it's a breath of fresh air, right? You bring someone from outside the organization in, they're tapping in, and they're really spending time with your leaders. Certainly an amazing investment, and I know it stands out for me in my
Yeah.
career.
Yeah, I agree. Listen, a few more questions. This one's important for anybody out there who's listening and they're an aspiring sales leader. Okay, they're a top performer, and it's kind of coming full circle. We started off with the idea that not all great sales professionals can be sales leaders, but there are a number out there who can be. But for somebody who's aspiring to be a sales leader and who is a top performer, what kind of advice would you give them to move from being that top performer to a sales leader?
Yeah, very simple. Ask for some sort of participation in some sort of coaching assignment, right?
Right.
Simple as that.
Right.
Like, I really aspire to be a leader. I aspire to be in a leadership capacity. What can you get from your current role where maybe it's a project, maybe it's training somebody, maybe it's spending time with the training department, right? But it's
Mm-hmm.
something that's outside of your current role. You need to advocate for yourself. Ask for it,
Yeah.
and then ask for feedback. That's the other thing, right? Always ask for feedback. At the end of the day, even today, when I do something in front of someone, I said, hey, give me feedback, because feedback is a gift. And when someone tells you whether it's good and great, they're going to give you good feedback, but dig deep, find out, hey, where do you think I should improve? What area do you think I missed? So don't be shy to ask those questions, but ask for those opportunities within your organization. And because if you don't advocate for that, no one else will for you. So be sure to
Yeah.
be your own advocate.
Yeah. Great answer. All right, last question. If you had to leave the audience with one key piece of advice in building a winning team, what would that be? We've talked a lot about it today.
I would say open, honest communication, right? Be transparent, be honest, uh, gain. That's how you start to build. Ultimately, you want to set the bar, build that high level culture. but it starts with that open communication. That's how you get to trust, right? It really does.
Yeah.
It really does start there, and people genuinely see that you care. People genuinely see that you're in it to help them, and without that open, honest, transparent communication, it's hard to get to the next level. So that would be my number one advice as you start to build teams, whether it's a new team, even an existing team. You could turn that around by just starting to have those open dialogues as you start to build where you'd like to be and setting the bar and the ultimate culture for your team.
That's fantastic, man. Listen, this has been a great show. It's obvious you're a great leader. If there's some professionals out there or people who are aspiring or organizations that need help, where can people reach out to you, Nick?
Hey, I'm on LinkedIn. Feel free to have them. It's Nick Rella. Very simple. You'll find me on LinkedIn. I'm happy to spend a conversation with you. I mentor a ton of people, and always enjoy to build my network and learn a little bit about other people and other types of roles. So feel free to reach out to me. Again, it's Nick Rella, and I'm on LinkedIn.
Excellent, man. Listen, he's Nick Rella. I am Dave Sliman. And listen, if you could do this for us, share this show with one person, just one person who needs it. Share it with an organization. I don't care. Nick has brought it today. He's brought all the stuff that it really takes to be a leader. And the guy's on the front lines and he works with teams. And as you can see here, he's got great experience. So I've really enjoyed the conversation today, Nick. It's been a great show. Everybody out there, go get a win. As I always say, get a win, and wealth, health, success to all of you. And we will see you next time. Appreciate you, Nick.
Thank you.
Unfinished Business Podcast Show with your host, David Sliman.